welcome to the World Builders Library. I'm Lewis Nichols, and today we're asking one question. What is the London Vale? Well, for one thing, it's the home base for my 3 years running 5E campaign. In short, it's a geographic area with distinct natural limits, shared culture, and a common history. It's seen over by a weak central government, formerly known as the Heston Authority. What is the Heston Authority? Now this is time-stamped in the local year 1001, because we know in world building you are building for a moment. That is why you have a history where things have changed to lead you up to this moment, and that's why all the work you do is invalid as soon as you do it. As time moves forward and things change. The government of the London Vale is known as the Heston Authority. This union is comprised of 5 major factions. The most visible of these is usually referred to as Heston, the Vale, HA, or sometimes Greater Heston. It's the part that you see on a map of the continent, the surface world of humans, elves, tieflings, and halflings, among others. Officially, it is the Heston Authority. Surface dwellers usually state they are from the nearest city or large town, or noble's fief, if asked, rather than referring to a larger government. The other major factions are the Dwarven Kingdoms, the Commonwealth of Dragons, the Windsor Elves, the Macbeth Federation. In addition, there are 2 notable minor factions. These are the Drow of Granola and the City of Aden, formerly Malice. The balance of power shifts regularly with the Macbeth and the Dwarves currently in ascendance. We're going to go into detail for each of these at some future point. Let it be said for now, when decisions must be made, factions will negotiate a solution. Usually there is no consensus, and policy shifts in favor of wealth, influence, martial power, and vigor. On a side note, this is kind of a short video, reviewing some things that we've talked about in other videos, pulling it together, presenting my world to you, and helping me get my own thoughts together. But the stuff still helps. You know the stuff. Like, subscribe. You are all great people, and I want to hear from you. That's it. Let's go. What kind of government is this? Let's talk about the office of the Burger Principal. Possibly the weakest important person in the Heston Authority. Now, one of these decisions that all these factions have to make is the occasional appointment of the government's figurehead, the Burger Principal of Heston. Now, most surface towns are led by a Burger Principal. It's sort of a mayor appointed by the local urban nobility. So, it's true when the BP of Heston is referred to as the mayor of Heston. However, that's generally considered an insult, as he has little power beyond the city itself and perhaps its immediate surrounding. So how strong really is the BP of Heston? Historically, the office is more diplomatic than authoritarian. It's the guy who takes the call from the neighboring power and ends with, I'll get back to you on that. He's a peacemaker among local factions and a guy who makes administrative decisions around home. The most powerful department in the Heston Authority is by far the Bureau of Licensing. Now, to be fair, the BP of Heston does appoint the upper executives of this department. The Bureau of Licensing, they get around 70% of the national budget. Not that it's really a huge budget compared to the wealth of the region. So that 70% of the budget creates an office in the workings to oversee 3 big components of Heston's economic life. That's the alchemy works, mining and timber rights, and the process under which company shares can be purchased, traded, and the way that payments to shareholders are made. This is about the only part of government that operates as a organized bureaucracy. There are smugglers, demon diddlers, drug runners, sheep rustlers, and extortion rackets all throughout the London Vale. These guys get off with a warning and slaps on the wrist. If you illegally sell a share in a mining venture, then you're getting a serious fine, a catastrophic fine, and some serious jail time. Now, recently, the office of the burger principal has been stable and grown somewhat in power. Previously, the Vale's military policy has been built around the development of fighting teams, what you might call adventuring teams. Now, these guys, they're hard to control by anybody, so they didn't help the position of the burger principal at all, even though the guy had a little bit of oversight. Now, these are still important components of military planning, but now larger martial forces, military groups, mercenary groups, militias, and expeditionary forces can be organized. They are being organized under the auspices of the burger principal. Now, this involves licensing, this involves handshake agreements, this is giving the burger principal more control. All right, what about the social classes of the London Vale? Let's keep digging. The rural nobility controls fiefs. These are geographic areas with distinct borders. They may include villages, waterways, roads, etc. The leaders of these noble families are the last say in pretty much everything that happens on their land. Most of these holdings are a few thousand acres, with some of them encompassing millions of acres. In other words, several miles to cross. The peoples within are free in principle, with the right to move about, engage in commerce, etc. Many are poor and find it difficult to exercise these rights. The primary defining factors of these nobles are divine and state recognition of their status, a right to trade in all public shares under the management of the HA, the right to rule over fiefs, this applies to the rural, the right to appoint and dismiss the burger principal, this applies to urban nobility. All right, we've talked about the burger principal. Where does that come from? Well, we have a social status, a social group, a strata of the economic organization of the London Vale called the burger class. The burger class is the London Vale's middle class. In urban areas, most residents are burghers. In rural areas, these numbers are far lower, dropping down to around 20% in some areas. The status can be earned, awarded, or just flat out purchased. Ultimately, any noble can appoint a burgher within their zone of control. Often nobility will award the status for long service or just as a gesture of goodwill. Buying status is usually around 2,000 gold pieces. Many thieves' guilds can also supply papers affirming the title for under 500 gold, or even less with certain commitments. Burghers may purchase and trade in most shares. They may be taxed. They may own property, and they have a right to a trial. Commoners might be jailed by noble decree without cause. Our last social status, the guys on the bottom, the Vale commoner. To be a commoner is to be content. At least that's the way the slogan goes. Every citizen of the Heston authority is born a commoner. Even one born of noble blood does not automatically have high status. This is largely a case of semantics and an excuse to celebrate the attainment of teenage nobles officially moving up in society and gaining their full package of rights and privileges. Commoners do not pay levied taxes, but they also cannot own property. However, there are many cases where individuals have staked out secluded homesteads. These are often recognized as their property even though the particulars don't exactly fall under the official law. Remember, governments are very weak here, and independence is a cultural virtue. In one particular case, a noble has annually promoted a particular squatter at the edge of his lands, once a year, every year, to the burger class. Every year, the squatter then renounces the status. It's become a local event. There are also a few reasons that the path out of commoner status is blocked. Criminals may be barred. Questionable entities may also be refused status. This has been used against possessed beings, automatons, though not all are barred, and occasional vampire variants. Recently, a lack of regulations has created a situation where the peoples of the Derberg River Valley might gain burgher status in and around the regional capital, but lose that status if traveling into Heston proper. Yeah, so that's the video. I suppose we all have the urge to shout out, hey, look what I did, isn't this cool? But most of the time the answer is no, but I appreciate your efforts and your passion. My goal here, my hope, is that you find one little bit of inspiration for personalizing some aspect of your own projects. It's easy to get locked down into our ideas of how fantasy should work. This is clunky. This is still a work in progress. I don't know that it's really functional, but maybe it'll give you an idea for something that'll make your world more functional and more cool. Let's face it, a lot of the time, our worlds are based on ideas of how our own past history works, and honestly, things get distorted by the historians, by the politicians, by TikTok. The important thing for us world builders is that we work on our process, that we study, revise, move forward, and throw it out or revise it if it's not working. Don't be afraid to improve or make changes in an existing world. Most of all, remember, the real world is pretty dumb. You won't do worse. You're not dumb. You're not dumb at all. Next time, we're going to dig into elves, dwarves, and so forth. I don't know when that next time is going to be. Part 2 to this video could be a month away. That's probably a pretty good estimate. But I'm going to talk more and more about my game setting as the weeks roll on. It might become a whole thing for 2026. Holy cow, this year's almost over. All right, don't get bogged down in that. Things are crazy out there. Stick to your fantasy world. It's better. Thanks everybody for stopping by. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day. Cheers.